Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course I'm joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And I know we spoke about the country of Suriname, a Dutch-speaking country in South America not too long ago, and it got a lot of attention, and we wanted to kind of go into this and give a bit of an update because of course things have continued to elapse, and they're not elapsing for the greater good, that's for sure. The economy is in deep trouble, the inflation rate is going rampant. So John, can you start us off?
Well, looking at some economic numbers from Suriname here, it's quite interesting. Of course, the currency is continuing to lose its value as inflation is getting more rampant.
Yep.
There's, of course, a downward trend. Like the GDP has drastically fallen down. There's not numbers. I guess that's yearly numbers, so I'm not getting anything.
They've been holding off a lot of the numbers, eh?
Yeah, some of them, and you got the unemployment rate. It's doesn't really move. Like it's last time they came out with it was in December 2014, so that was quite interesting. Of course, the inflation rate has jumped since we did the video last time, Josh, and I believe it's jumped almost 19% since last time, over 2 months, and that's huge.
So what's that right now?
55% right now official inflation, but that was in May. So I'm just calculating from looking at like the trajectory of where it could go. It could go as high as 100% right now in this month. By itself, so it's really losing the value very rapidly. And of course, IMF, every time there's a state in trouble, the IMF comes in, you know, the richest predator there is, to borrow money to these poor people of Suriname. Not the people of Suriname. What's his name again?
Bouterse. Bouterse. I don't know how to pronounce the name properly, but Desi Bouterse, who is the president, of course, of Suriname, as our Surinamese friends know, he is accused of murdering and torturing people back in with the December murders, and of course he's pardoned his foster son, who apparently tortured and murdered and raped people, and then he also is being accused of drug trafficking, which WikiLeaks has actually ratted him out as a drug trafficker, going all the way up to 2006, but going way back. And the fact that he has been involved in gangs and mobs, and it's just the average kind of mobster mentality that we see with most countries. Their leaders are usually mobsters of some sort, and it's just this guy's right in the open, and he is openly a terrible person, and hopefully something's done about that, but that's up to the good people of Suriname.
Yeah, it definitely is. And looking at the credit rating as well, like the credit rating is super low. Like I look at the trading economics credit rating because I don't trust Moody's and all the other ones. Because what trading economics does, it look at all of the trading agencies plus the economic data and then makes up a number. So which is really good. You could really see a clear number, and it's 38.75 right now, which is super low. Like it's way below like junk as investment grade. So it's getting pretty bad right now in Suriname on all sides, and of course, you know, getting outside money into Suriname is going to be harder and harder. And as they, you know, move forward, and if they've issued some debt in dollars and then they got to pay it back with their worthless Suriname currency, now we're going to have a massive, huge problem on your hands, and it's going to completely destroy your economy. Suriname is, of course, you know, a tiny little state, and that's probably why mainstream media doesn't give a crap about the people there.
Well, I mean, among many other reasons, because the mainstream media doesn't exactly talk about the inflation rates until it's too late, and people aren't warned, and people don't know why inflation rates are so rampant, and our job is to explain why they're rampant and how people are being used as debt slaves by the monetary system.
So two main things now, reason why you have very high inflation in Suriname right now is, of course, they're a heavily commodity economy, so they very much depend on that. And when the government doesn't get enough royalties from the commodities companies, well, they're gonna have to spend more money. They have a current deficit of minus 5.1 right now. And of course, you know, our Keynesian friends here in Canada are running kind of a similar deficit as well. So we all know where this is going, and governments, you know, that thought that they could use a whole bunch of commodities to and enrich themselves and have a massive state. Now you're seeing these massive states, they're going down because they were so dependent on commodity prices, especially oil, many countries. And that's why you're seeing it getting demolished, destroyed with massive inflation, because the government has to print money to pay to whoever they are owing money. including the IMF and other predatory lenders from probably United States and others that are on Wall Street that are involved in lending money to them.
And then the IMF holds them hostage. And by the way, just so you know, we're sweating like crazy because it's about 40 degrees Celsius here. It is very hot, so don't mind us. But going into something that you kind of mentioned before was how commodity rich they are. They have gold there, a lot of gold in Suriname. And actually what I find interesting about this is they are using paper money, devalued paper money. As we always mention here at WHAM, all paper money is created out of thin air. Even if it's based on something, they print more of it than they have in reserves, and then what happens is the price of living inflates, the dollar is devalued, it leaves you guys with a whole bunch of debt, and then after that you of course are going to have to pay that back. The taxpayer is expected, even though it's a fraudulent system that's made in order to keep you guys in servitude. But imagine though, with these commodities, what they could do for themselves if they were more individual, if the government left them alone and allowed them to have a freer market where they could follow voluntarist principles and get rich off of these commodities. And it would be a lot more equal that way. And I don't mean equal by force of government, I mean by demand.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at like the amount of percent more gold than they have here in Canada is 134%, because they got 1.34 tons, which means that Canada, of course, the idiots that they are. Bill Murnau, I got a message for you if you listen to our Suriname video. I don't know what you're thinking with, but you Keynesian guys, something's going to come for you very soon, where we have the debt bubble of this massive empire of debt that you guys have created. It's going to plummet down, and we're going to see negative interest rates all over the world. This is just like an insane bomb bubble. Like, we never had anything like this before, because now we have fiat currency systems on a global level, and it's never happened before. So take a hold of this, people in Suriname, and remember, you're not alone actually with this system that you have. We have the same issue here in Canada and everywhere else. It's just that we haven't hit the massive and high inflation thresholds because it's been so manipulated, especially here in Canada and other Western states.
And of course, paper money, it's reverted to zero hundreds of times already. Fiat currencies, it's almost at the 1000th year anniversary of the fiat currency, going back to 1024 AD in China. And of course, we haven't learned in those 1000 years, but I think we're about to learn right now, because what's happening is the globalists have control of the monetary system. If you think it's bad to be enslaved by debt in one country, imagine worldwide. It is a globalist issue, and that's why we're talking to the good people of Suriname, because unfortunately they're being thrown under the bus. And it's just another example of how places like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, the Weimar Republic in Germany back in the 1920s, 1923, I mean, this has been repeated so many times before, and I don't know when people are going to finally listen to us and say, oh wow, you've been right about all these things. I wonder if you're still right, Yeah.
Well, when it all comes back to it, never take any money from the IMF. The IMF is just a corrupt organization that works together with, we're going to do a report on the Exchange Stabilization Fund soon, and the Federal Reserve. Like, those three guys, they work in coherence and to manipulate the market and to control and force the exchange rate of the US dollar to be as stable as possible, because that's their main goal, is to keep the US dollar hegemony. But the thing now is this whole system is plummeting down because the US has so much debt. It's massive amounts of debt. I think I read somewhere that they had $120 trillion in total debt, like corporate, residential, and public debt. So like it's just a massive empire of debt. And also in Suriname, you guys are starting to acquire a lot of debt, and watch out, because what's going to happen if you guys default on that debt? The IMF and other predators from like high up investors like Soros and others are going to come in and loot your country for your mines and everything, every value that you might have left in your country. They're going to come and strip it out, like strip mine your whole country.
It's so sad to watch, because we've watched this happen to so many countries, and people just look at it as a number and a country, but they don't realize these are individuals, so many individuals who are being affected by this, whose lives will be ruined, who are going to be in complete poverty. And so many people have asked us from Suriname, what can I do? And it's hard to say. First of all, I want to point out, by law, we have to say that we're not giving economic advice, we're giving our opinions, because you need some kind of crazy Keynesian degree to be able to tell the truth. But you can see the evidence for yourself. It is very evident. But let's get down to it. My advice, personally, from my opinion, is that the people of Suriname need to stand up against this coercive state that is forcing them into servitude, plundering their humanity, and making damn sure that that they are enslaved by this debt, and that they are unable to be able to speak for themselves and say, look, I don't support this. Why do I have to pay for your fraudulent activities? And I don't support a world government. I don't support the IMF. Why do I have to support it with my taxes and when I go and pay for something at the store? And I think the people need to stand up. Bouterse is a criminal, very obviously. I mean, it's well documented going back many years. And aside from that, the central banking powers that be that are controlling the country's economy, that it needs to be taken down, and the people as individuals need to rise up with voluntary solutions and with voluntary demand, free markets, and overall freedom, because we're born free. Only the government takes that away from us, but they cannot give us our freedom. So John, what is your advice, from your opinion, for the people of Suriname?
Well, I would say, first of all, stock up on gold and silver. Again, it always is a wealth protection. Actually, keep yourself with food. Try to be self-sufficient when it comes to food, water, and so on. Look at Venezuela, one of your close neighbor countries down there. It's horrible because it was a massive socialist and government-controlled area where the government didn't really let anybody, and they stop anybody that are self-sufficient, because the government, and this happens also in Nazi Germany, when they came in and invaded somebody, they stopped them from being self-sufficient and planting stuff themselves. So make sure you have food and water, the most essential services, and then there might be some local commodity that might be very valuable to you guys in Suriname, like fish. Who knows what it is, but stock up on that. And then, of course, you guys are 540,000 individuals there, of course, minus some of the globalists and the horrible elitists there. But remember, you guys are in the massive majority. So
absolutely,
you have the individual power.
And of course, like we've talked about Suriname before, and a lot of people will ask why. Well, because we have to look at the individuals in this country. It's largely forgotten by the mainstream media. It's largely forgotten by the mainstream public. Even the people in our field that are talking about these kinds of economic issues are largely ignoring Suriname. And I don't think it's right, because it's got one of the worst inflation rates in the world, and these people are suffering. There's so many people suffering in Suriname. Suriname has been through enough. As a people of Suriname know, this has been going on off and on for a very long time, and it's time that you as individuals take your country back. Not hand it to a leader, but take it back as individuals, because you deserve it. You can become rich. It's only the elitist, globalist cabal that's keeping you guys in servitude.
Yeah, I remember, white or native or whatever you are, guys, you guys got to work together. Stop letting the elitists, divide and conquer. We see that in the United States. Take a look at the United States and see what's going on there, and see if it's very similar to what you guys have.
And the divide is distracting people from the real issues,
100%.
like how they're being enslaved by the government. The government loves the divide. It keeps people fighting themselves instead of the real problem, which is the government, which is the central banks. So thank you, John. We will be talking more about Suriname in the future. Please send us your questions. We'd love to answer them as best as we can. It's a sad time to be alive, but it also is a bit of an optimistic time, because people are starting to wake up. When things collapse, people realize how bad things are, and unfortunately it's too late for that in particular problem, but for the future it isn't. So let's work together as individuals and unite, and let's say no to these monstrous globalist cabals that are destroying our free will and our humanity. Let's take our countries back. Let's take our individualism back. Let's be voluntary, free human beings. Thank you, John. This is Josh Sigurdson, John Sneisen, signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.